Hello, Dino here, and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 5 of 2023. As ever, 7 interesting things I saw in the news last week. Hopefully they're useful. If they are, give it a like, maybe share it with somebody, maybe surprise them. Let's crack on. First one is from a book. This is from, I'm going to get this wrong, Paul Scher, let's say that. This is all about AI on the battlefield, and there was a really interesting chapter in there. They've released a few chapters to try and get some PR, which is clearly working. One of the chapters was about DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency in America, so the sort of defense US Marine type of thing. Some dodgy projects come out of there, but also quite some interesting research as well. This one was about, can AI detect enemies on the battlefield? And they set about finding this out by getting a system and then having 8 Marines to see if they could walk up to the system and press a button, essentially. This was kind of neat. All 8 managed to do it, evade the system, so it's a fail for the AI. 2 notable ways of doing this was hiding in a cardboard box and shuffling your way up to the system, and the second one was not looking like a human at all by doing backflips all the way through the ground up until the system. So I think that's hilarious. So is AI going to take over the world? No, not just yet, based on this test. Although this is interesting. So this has been all over the news. Again, lots of PR behind this. For obvious reasons, this looks just like that thing out of Terminator where the baddie oozes through the bars and goes and try and finds Sarah Connor and all that sort of stuff. What's actually happening here is slightly less interesting than that, but it's still kind of cool. So it's a material that is both magnetic but also has a very low melting point. You can maneuver this thing around by having a magnet and just moving it left and right. It will move like that as well. You can then alternate that magnet really quickly, which then excites the particles in the material, which then heats it up, which then melts, and you can use the same magnet to pull it through the bars. The secret here, which is a little bit sneaky, is as it comes through the bar, there's a little mold. You're about to see the goop go into the mold just there. So that's what's happened, is you wait for a little bit, which is what that sort of freezing symbol is, and as soon as it's reconstituted into the little Lego character, you then use the magnets to flip it up again. So this is actually research that is aimed at medical or the medical world, so that you can then have little robots within the body delivering medicine or doing surgery. But also they've shown how maybe with microelectronics you can maneuver up to maybe a solder joint that isn't working, heat it up and resolder it and repair it in situ in awkward places. So that is kind of neat on several levels. This also is kind of neat. So this is some research that shows that you can actually transmit using no power whatsoever. It doesn't break the second law of thermodynamics, which is all that sort of perpetual motion stuff. So the way this works is you have a resistor which is full of electrons connected to an antenna. Therefore, the whole system is full of these fizzy electrons. They've all got their own energy. They're all moving around slightly. If you then open up that system, the antenna becomes cold. It's now not connected to this great resource of electrons. It then becomes what's called a cold system. That difference between the antenna going hot and cold, i.e. active and not active, actually creates essentially pulses of electromagnetic and magnetic radiation, which can be detected as 1s and 0s. So as long as you can open and close that switch, somehow you can do it physically, or you can put a transistor there, then you can generate these pulses. So that might be somehow used in microelectronics of the future, where you can have maybe short form or maybe short distance communication for essentially free. You don't need to power the circuit. So that's quite interesting. This is NVIDIA, who always do a load of cool stuff. This was actually reported last year, but it was a sort of a demo feature. What's happening here is you can now turn on a feature within their broadcast system. It's called the broadcast suite, which will correct the eye or the gaze of a person on screen towards the user. So it does it real time. So as you see, he's actually looking off to one side, but in the eye contact version, it's looking straight at you. This is only available really in the broadcast suite, so this is actually a suite of stuff for video broadcast, but I can imagine this being in video conferencing software pretty soon. I like that. This is Seth Robinson from Robinson Foundry, showing you how you can use a 3D printed object to then cast metal objects. This uses the last process, which traditionally uses wax. So you make a wax model, you coat the wax model in ceramics, you then heat up the ceramics, which then melts the wax out of it, leaving a void, and you then fill the void full of the metal. So it's shown, and I've seen a few of these as well. There's various ways of doing this, but essentially it melts the plastic out instead of melting the wax out. So I'm so besotted by this, I've actually ordered a, whatever that is, a smelter or a kiln or whatever that is, and I'm going to give it a go myself. So I will give you a bit of an update on that when it happens, but an interesting way of going from a digital file to a plastic file to a metal thing. So there you go. Oh, when I say plastic file, a plastic thing. Interesting. Flex AR or FlexR. This is actually from Carl Bouger. I think I said that right again. I think I might have got it wrong last week again. However, let's go with it. This is an updated flap. So this is a flexible actuator. You put some electricity through it. It then attracts the flap to a magnet. Therefore, if you do that lots of times per second, you can get a flappy thing. What you do with the flappy thing, totally up to you. But Carl, for instance, has used it for an augmented reality device where you can attach LEDs to it, and then you have a sort of mid-air holographic device, so to speak. You're about to see it anytime soon. So he's updated it. There's a really interesting video about how he did it. If you're into product or if you're into electronics and how prototyping works, it's a really interesting video. But just some of the top level things, it can actually flap at 25 times a second, although it's more comfortable at 10 times a second, and it can now flap for 100 million times, available for $9.99. Again, I have no idea what to do with it, but it's really interesting. And finally, we have a sport I didn't hear of, so thank you, Rob, for showing me this. Always love innovation in sport. This has been going for 2 years, and this is the Balloon World Cup. This is actually from 2021, although the 2022 event happened last year, clearly, in October, and was won by Spain, beating Brazil in the final. What you have to do here is just keep the balloon up in the air. If it hits the floor, then you lose. You can only hit the balloon upwards, you can't hit it down or sideways, and that's pretty much how it works. And I just love the fact it's in what looks like a sort of a squash court or something like that, but there's all sorts of guff in there, like a living room. I love this. So more innovation in sport, please. If that was interesting, if that was useful, as I say, it really helps if you send it to somebody. It just surprise them, doesn't really matter. Give it a like, and I will see you next week.